Hello everyone. Squash BC would like to welcome you to the Squash BC High Performance Program Information Session. Today we will cover how the new High Performance Program will be operated and how it is in line with the Sport Canada's long-term athlete development model. Today we have Squash BC High Performance Provincial Coach Richard Yandell leading the information session.
So again, the intentions of this presentation, just to go through the new framework, selection criteria, and sort of the goals and mission for what we want to do moving forward. In terms of our previous program, some of you will be familiar. We had a provincial squad, a regional training squad, and then a regional training squad, which was mainly, I think, the interior athletes. And one of the goals of our high performance grant, this program that Victor and Kevin and Andrew and I were working on, one of the key parts of this program was to integrate more closely with Squash Canada and their development program. What's been great in the last couple of months, Jamie Nichols has been hired by Squash Canada as their new director of athlete development, which is going to be a big help in terms of improving Squash Canada's visibility and leadership in terms of athlete development. And we're working pretty closely with Squash Canada now in terms of rolling out some of the ideas and programs that you'll hear about as we get through this presentation. The grant, again, we were trying to identify certain gaps that we had in our current program. And one of the big gaps, and this isn't necessarily related to the juniors on this call, building our high performance program into an under 23 program. So as our juniors move off to university, we need to be developing more of a long-term athlete program. And, part of our goals of this program is not only the juniors and winning junior national championships and US Junior Opens and things like that, but really trying to build towards putting BC athletes onto our senior national team and being successful at the senior level. So that was one of the gaps that Via Sport identified with our overall high performance program. So you can see just overall, we're trying to think a bit bigger in terms of our program, trying to get the mentality of a performance-based program. So putting more requirements onto the athletes and expectations onto the athletes in terms of their performance. We're going to be trying to clearly define performance standards for the various levels of squads or talent ID, as you'll see as we go through the presentation. And certainly looking at how we're going to develop the grassroots or the sort of the next wave of juniors as we continue to build a high performance program. Should have a little cue here if you want to go to the next slide. Can you move that along, Nancy? Yeah. Yeah, so I think we can skip over this one. We've just reviewed that with the previous high performance program. Again, as I just said, trying to develop a more transparent identification process, trying to develop for national teams and again into our senior national teams, and trying to have more specific competencies and skill-based, measurable skill-based programming for all of our juniors as we move forward, trying to set more training goals, whether it's physical or a technical, tactical type of goals within our training program, trying to create a more consistent results-based system. So again, with Squash Canada now, you're going to see some standardized testing that's going to be more closely monitored for athletes. And so again, it's not just going to be the results at tournaments. It's also going to be, how strong are you performing in certain physical tests, and again, responsibilities for athletes to perform these tests multiple times a year. So do you want to go to the next slide?
I do now.
I'm gonna have to just move something off my screen here so I can read this. So our provincial and regional squads are going to be replaced. Essentially we have a new talent ID system. One of our discoveries through the evaluation of our high performance program, we really felt that our existing squads were too large. We were having training groups of 12 or more, 12 athletes over the course of a weekend. And they were doing a lot of work in a few days and then not getting together again for, a couple of months. One of our recommendations was to having more consistent regionalized training. So there would, the idea of having regular training for ID athletes in the Vancouver area, having regular training for athletes on the island, and then having opportunities for these athletes to come together at different times, again, for selected training. One of the goals, again, is to keep these groups a little bit smaller and having a little bit more consistency with the training. The concept of providing a little bit more, like increasing the quality, increasing the quantity of programming for the elite level athletes. Okay, we go to the next. Now again, some of the stuff is changing as we go along, and Martin Heath is still involved with Squash Canada as one of our national coaches, I believe. He put out these various pillars of development for athletes in Canada, and trying to create some consistency with our training and what sort of things our athletes are working on. So there's a bit more consistency from club to club. This isn't meant to tell our coaches what to do. Everybody in our program, everybody playing squash in BC has their own personal coaches, and our program is not meant to take that role on. What we do want to do is provide or trying to create a bit more consistency within our athletes so that everybody's working on something somewhat similar and ensuring that our athletes have a proper base of tools in order to perform as they go to national and even international competition. And so Squash Canada had come out with these various standards, again, for T domination, front court domination, deception, three-quarter attack, length variation. So just providing a bit of framework for us to plan some of the high performance training. Do you want to move to the next one, Nancy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the selection process previously for high performance programming with these squads, as we mentioned, happened once a year. So athletes were selected in the summertime and put onto squads, which were essentially static for the season. And what we're trying to move to now is more opportunity to come in and out of these squads as the year goes along. We want to target, with our previous competition schedule. And again, I have to be clear that obviously pre-COVID, things looked a lot different, and everybody would be familiar with Canadian Junior Open, US Junior Open in December, Canadian Junior closed in April, summertime, European events. And those dates might be shifting a bit now as we come into this new, once we get back to return to play. But the idea again is creating our squads or training groups that are specifically targeting athletes who are going to be peaking for these national level events, and also having athletes who are potentially peaking for more regional events. So regional events being PNWs or jesters. So a regional event would be considered an interprovincial event, where a national event would obviously be a Canadian championship or a US or British championship. So the idea is we would be able to monitor athletes as they go through the season. And when an athlete has a strong performance at one of these targeted events, that would provide them an opportunity to move into a squad or upgrade their status within a squad. So trying to create measurable standards again, so it's very clear in terms of the level of play that we are trying to establish for these various statuses or various talent ID groups. Within that program, we will structure training sessions for those athletes that have been identified. And some of the athletes, more the older under 19, under 17 athletes might be coming together to train a little more frequently versus the under 13 or under 15 athletes that don't necessarily need as much individual training at that age. So it could be an example of having a regular Sunday program or having a monthly program that these athletes again come together and are training in a very invitational type of training environment with provincial coaches. Do you want to go to the next slide?
I will. What I'm going to do is
Right.
we're going to try just something technical, Richard. So hold for 1 sec. I'm going to stop share. And
is there any questions? Can I just open up?
Josh is going to take over. Let me unmute people, if I can, or they can unmute. Let's see. There we go. Much better screen. Okay, I've just unmuted those that want to be unmuted, if they have any questions.
Hi, Richard. I have a question. This is Nancy.
Yep.
I was just curious, what are those exercises or those, you mentioned that there were some kind of like physical activities that they had to perform. What are those?
The physical testing, and this is Squash Canada. We're going to, once we name our selected athletes, we will have, these examples would be, there's some certain court movements that they're doing within a certain time. They're basically physical assessments. Standing long jump is one of them. So there's a little battery of tests for us to start a baseline for measuring, right? And these tests now will be consistent across the country. So the athletes in Ontario will be performing the same tests, and we can start to collect data in terms of how our athletes are doing and be able to measure them, if that makes sense.
Great. Good. Do you want to go to the next one, Richard?
Sure. I am not seeing the slides.
There it is.
Okay. So again, with this new program, we're going to show you the criteria as we just move through these slides. Again, the criteria is fairly clear at this moment in time in terms of level of play, and we will be monitoring these various events. So Jesters, BC Junior Open, BC Junior Closed, and monitoring athletes as they participate in these events. Once we have the events completed, we can evaluate, athletes that are moving in and out of these squads, and planning for the next training cycle. So the plan was to start this program in September, and we would have named a squad previously and established these training groups through to December. And then starting in January, we would evaluate and reestablish squads that go from January up until the Canadian Junior closed. Again, at which point in May, we would reestablish squads and train through the summertime, and giving athletes opportunity to come in and out. All of the athletes would be approved through the high performance committee. and the Squash BC board. And there's definitely an appeals process if you know, an athlete feels that they've been looked over or missed out. Again, that will all be clear for athletes to appeal if there was a situation where you know, they feel they should be included. Yeah, again, the criteria will be provided ahead of time, so everybody will be clear about what, you know, where we're selecting. Okay.
Next slide.
It's a fee-based program. So once the squads or groups are selected, you know, most of the juniors are participating in programming at a club in BC, in Vancouver or on the island. You know, these are going to be supplementary programs for athletes to attend. Our plan is to have 2 provincial level coaches at the sessions, and the sessions would run, you know, approximately an hour and a half, 2 hours long. On the weekend, we could do some mini camps of 3 hours or more. So we're going to have a bit of flexibility in terms of creating programming, planning for March break camps and summer camps as well would all be part of this program. And again, athletes will have the opportunity to attend. Yeah, can we move on? Sorry, I just have to minimize this. Okay, so we can review the criteria now for this new high performance program. We've broken, you know, as an overall picture here, we've broken the program into 4 categories. So we have a developing athlete, ages 8 to 14. These athletes are at this time basically participating in provincial competitions. So they are not necessarily traveling outside of BC at this time. They would be playing club tournaments, BC Junior Open, BC Junior Closed. The next status, again, ages 11 to 18. These athletes are now participating in regional competitions. And again, regional competitions are defined as interprovincial. So might be the PNWs, might be the Alberta Jesters, an Ontario Gold event, or a US Junior Gold event. Those are going to be your high performance athletes. Junior elite athletes would be top nationally ranked juniors. They are targeting performance at Canadian national championships, US championships, and pushing towards international competition. We do have a number of athletes in BC that attend the British Junior Open, the Hong Kong Junior Open, and we're trying to build you know, again, dreaming a little bit bigger, trying to push the top end of the programming. From there, the senior elite category will contain, you know, athletes that have gone off to university or athletes that are remaining in BC and pursuing a PSA career. They're participating in PSA events. And again, creating a training environment for these athletes to come together within BC throughout the year. Our index of pressure here, and I've sort of reviewed it already. It was really important, I think, when we were reviewing the program. You know, there's certain athletes we have that will do very well provincially, but when they get to the regional level, they'll struggle because the pressure is a little bit higher. And again, those athletes who maybe do well at the regional level, they may struggle at the national level. And what we want to do is start to identify these lines of pressure, and for each of the athletes, they're all you know, at a certain level or a certain standard, and it's important we want to identify what that standard is, and then again try and push those athletes up to the next standard. Trying to make sure if an athlete is selected onto a squad that they are still increasing or improving and not necessarily dropping. So again, we're trying to evaluate this standard and creating a standard for athletes. And again, now trying to provide a little bit more specific programming to help them improve. The senior elite category criteria that we've created at this point in time, this hasn't been finalized. We will use the Canadian national rankings. These athletes will be BC provincial champions, so they would win a BC Open or BC provincial championship, be training full time, playing on the PSA tour, so minimum requirements for number of events, and selected to represent Canada at the World Juniors, World University, Canadian Team Championships. So that's sort of the profile of the senior athlete. We're trying to provide some expectations for the athletes in the various statuses in the program, making sure that athletes who are selected are in fact going to target and participate in the appropriate competition during the season. And overall, once we have these athletes in our system, our senior elite athletes, we would like to integrate them into the training programs with the junior elite, the junior high performance. So there's a bit of mixing with the athletes. So we always have somebody stronger to help enhance the level within the different training groups. If we go to the next slide. So junior elite standard, top 5 national ranking, a top 3 finish at a national level event. The junior elite athletes should be over the age of 13. This is in line with long-term athlete development. The junior elite athlete is essentially past puberty or is starting to get a little bit older, and they're at an age where they can start to more intensively physically train. So there is a minimum age for this junior elite status. These would be top BC provincial champions or PNW, Alberta Jesters champion, so a regional, a regional provincial champion. Our junior elite athletes should be targeting international competition, looking to participate at Battle of the Border or national team events like the Pan Am Juniors or the World Juniors, and certainly competing in the Canadian Junior Open and Closed, as well as our own provincial championships at the senior level. High performance athletes, again, what you're going to see is just the rankings and the performance standards just changing slightly. So high performance, essentially U17, U15, U13 athletes, these are top 8 finish at a Canadian Junior Open or Closed, or a top 8 Canadian Junior ranking. The top 4 finish at a regional provincial event like the PNWs or the Jesters, top 2 finish at a provincial event, or a top 4 BC ranking. Our high performance athletes, so just to make it a bit clearer, like our high performance athlete will be potentially competing or winning one of these regional provincial events. And in terms of their training program, those are the events that they are peaking and competing at. We would like to then transition those athletes into peaking at the national competitions. So again, the elite status would be peaking more for Canadian Junior Open or Closed. Elite athletes may play up an age category at a provincial or a regional event. High performance athlete is probably still playing in their own age group at these regional provincial events. Most of the things that they must be doing, again, is participating in the appropriate tournaments for their identified status. The last category, if you want to move one more, is our development program. And development athletes are sort of the next generation grassroots juniors. These are specifically U11, U13, and U15 athletes. And at this point in time, again, they're participating provincially. We will not be running as many development consistent development training camps as per an elite training camp. But we certainly want to start to build a bigger base of athletes in order to produce more high performance and elite athletes in the future. These athletes are, again, transitioning from playing within our province. We'd like to encourage these ones to start playing more regional, provincial tournaments as they continue to develop. Again, further with the grassroots development, and certainly again with COVID and our tournaments being paused, we are going to be looking at the actual competition structure and trying to integrate or create a clear path of sort of development tournaments versus elite and high performance tournaments, so that we ensure that the appropriate athletes are getting the right head-to-head matches and competing regularly leading up to more major competitions. That it was always decided from the beginning, our first order of business was to get the high performance and the elite programs running. And from there, the development or grassroots program would come secondary. So the development program will probably not really get formalized until September of next year, or sometime, as we get back to competition. So hopefully it could be as early as the spring, but again, a lot of this is just going to depend on the current COVID climate. Yeah, so from this point, again, you can see the criteria. Our selected athletes will receive an invitation within the next day or two. We will have a letter of invitation, and now we'll start to communicate with these athletes and provide them with skill assessments and testing, and again, planning what we are going to be able to do once we are able to gain access to a club in terms of organizing some training programs. I don't know, I'm sure most of you are aware, but Junior Nationals is currently scheduled for the May long weekend. And we are using that date specifically as the first date for our selection. So you'll see that the athletes who have been selected, that date of birth is sort of critically important. So we're targeting the athletes, again, who are going to be in position, whether it's U13, U15, U17, that are positioning for that event and then working backwards. So our plan will be to have provincial competition prior to that national date, so that our athletes can obviously play matches and be prepared for that. And some of it is difficult at this point, just not knowing when we'll be able to have club access, but that is our plan moving forward. Hopefully by the spring, things will be a lot more open, and the plan will be to run a consistent program from end of May, June through the summertime to the end of August, and then again resetting another group for September.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, during COVID, we're going to ask the athletes to complete their assessments and training, collaborate with the coaches. And so part of my job will be to communicate with the various club coaches, and it's just an open dialogue, and just to make sure, checking in on athletes, talking about training, what maybe we could help provide in terms of enhancing their training programs. And for myself, again, we will be putting out a call for coaches to be directly involved. So the goal, again, is to have a collaborative group of coaches that work together and join in with these training sessions as we go through the season. One of the other goals will be to establish a junior league. I know there's been a lot of interest. Morven Lou, I think, is on this call. We've been sort of in the background trying to gauge the interest level. And I think a junior league, primarily at the grassroots level, but also at the high performance level, I think would be really valuable for our juniors. And it's not necessarily going to be every single week, as most of our juniors do participate in the adult league as well. But, you know, it's important that we can organize various competition for them to hopefully participate as a team. I think it'd be a great new program for us to roll out. And we're going to continue to work on the senior elite program. Again, our goal is to have a more comprehensive high performance program, and there to be a further pathway beyond the juniors. So that is a key piece that we're working on as well, along with the grassroots development program. Okay, so I think that is the end of our presentation. We can open it up for questions. I don't know, Nancy, maybe if you want to just raise a hand or put names into the chat if you have a question. We just open up.
It's a good idea. If I can't, if we can't see you, just put something into the chat.
And do you want to unmute everybody, Nancy?
They are generally, everyone should be unmuted unless you want to stay muted. Try it. Yeah.
Is there any questions at all?
Sorry if there's something wrong. Richard, is it, like when you say like weekend camps, do you mean like random like Thursday evening, just like 2-3 hours, or do you mean like?
Yeah. So, you know, again, and I'll just use Vancouver as an example. Like most of the athletes, or we know all the athletes are in club programming, and you know, you train once or twice a week or more with your regular club coach. So what we're looking at doing is organizing, and this will depend somewhat on the coaches, who they are. So every club runs slightly different schedule in terms of, you know, when they do their juniors and things. So club pros will be able to identify windows of time. So I would imagine, you know, we're looking at weekends when the courts are a little quieter at clubs, or later in the evening at some of the clubs. And again, there would be, you know, a weekly or bi-weekly training group. Like Jericho, for example, I could run a weekly or bi-weekly group on a Sunday evening, right? And there would be a select invitation to attend that training group. Part of the reason why they would be bi-weekly for some is, so as a coach, they would be running weekly sessions, but it would be a different group showing up bi-weekly, right? So we know our pros are quite busy, and we don't want to overload them or create too much demand on this. But again, this is meant to be supplementary. So it's just an opportunity for you know, our high performance athletes. At most of the clubs, the high performance athletes, you know, there's very few of them. There might be 1 or 2 within a group at the various levels. So if we can bring those ones together so that they're training with each other, that will be a big benefit for them. And you know, just collaborating with the coaches and then sending them away for a week or 2, and then they're coming back again. So creating more detailed training journals. Like athletes are going to be responsible for, you know, what are you working on? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And when you go back to your club, there's some consistency when you take a private lesson, so that you're talking with your coach and saying, this is what I'm working on right now. It's not a case of you going and one coach is doing one thing, another coach is doing another thing. Okay, so just trying to make a little more continuity between the program.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Hi, Richard. This is Nancy again. I was just curious why the development would have less training, because it seems like that group in particular would need more training to get them up to speed.
It's a good question. Most of the juniors at a development level have enough opportunity within their own club, right? So if you imagine U11, U13, or U15 players that are developing, there are generally plenty of juniors within their own club that they can get on court and play with. So getting them to come together will be a little bit different than having you like a 16, 17-year-old who doesn't have as many people at their club, right? And they've also got a lot longer in terms of their timeline. So, you know, we want to integrate them into our system. We want to make them a part of the program, but at a high performance level, they're not at a provincial level, they're still at a club level, if that makes sense. Right. And so we want to have some consistency and create some testing for them to develop, but a lot of that will still be done at the club level for those players.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
No one has any other questions or thoughts?
Is this what it's like being a teacher these days? The students just are really quiet.
I'm tired of looking at Zoom all day long. Well, maybe what we could do with that is you've all got the slide presentation and you have the new policies and procedures that are there. We've outlined some of the next steps, but you know, I know this is stuff that you need to think about and mull. So we're here to answer your questions, and you know, we're also going to put we're going to put the presentation, the Zoom presentation up on the Squash BC website, along with the actual presentation and the policies and the list of athletes that are ultimately selected. So that'll all be up over the weekend. Monday, I think, Josh, is when we were targeting that. And yeah, and if you have any questions, please ask. Richard's available.
Yep.
I'm available, but I
ask any
will help more.
Questions.
Yeah. Terrific. So we'll do one more chance. No more questions? Okay. Well, everyone have a great night. Oh, sorry, Nancy.
Oh, no, I was just going to say thank you for hosting.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, well, everyone have a great night, and thank you for joining us. Much appreciated. And thank you, Richard, for a great presentation.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, Nancy. Yeah, so we'll see everybody at some point soon. I hope everybody has happy holidays and continues to solo hit and do as much as you can within what we can work with at the moment.
All around skill development. Terrific. Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.